So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the star wide receivers that want to get massive contract extensions. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's jump right into the video. So there are some stars from that 2019 draft class that are looking to get contract extensions heading into their final years of their rookie deals. Now, those star wide receivers from that 2019 draft class are AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, and DK Medcap. And those are the main stars from that draft class that are looking to get those big, massive contract extensions. And all of them deserved. I don't think anybody's going to budge. I don't think anybody's going to be upset. All those guys fully 100% deserve those contracts. But the problem is they are I feel like the teams, and mainly every team in the NFL, I feel like even the teams they're on now, they're in a huge bind when it comes to what to pay those guys, because this offseason has been big when it comes to the amount of money spent. And at this point, it's not just wide receivers. It feels like every team in the NFL, they are just spending big bucks on every position. But because we're mainly talking about the wide receiver position in this video, let's look at some of those big name wide receivers that have gotten those big contracts this offseason. And it started off with Christian Kirk. He is the guy that completely broke the wide receiver market, I think, to start. You have a guy that is mainly considered a second tier wide receiver, a guy that's a really solid, a really good number 2 option, getting big bucks with the Jacksonville Jaguars, signing a 4-year, $72 million contract. Again, never going to fault the player for getting the money. Mainly, if you're going to criticize anybody for the amount of money they give out, I would say look towards the organization first rather than the player, because the player is going to deserve their money. But Christian Kirk started it all off. And then you have Devante Adams getting a ginormous contract from the Oakland Raiders after he was traded from the Green Bay Packers, signing a 5-year, $141.25 million contract with them. Again, another well-deserved contract, a contract that Adams completely deserved. He's going to do great. He's been great, and I still think he's going to do great things in the future. And then you have the contract that I think just completely broke the market completely at this point. Like, it's just off the chains how much money is being spent, and that's the Tyreek Hill contract that he got from the Miami Dolphins after he was traded to them from the Kansas City Chiefs. He signed a 4-year, $120 million contract. So you have 3 really big contracts this offseason that these players signed, and it just kind of opened the door for these guys in the 2019 draft who are eligible to get big time money. Kind of open up the door for them, and those guys are now going to be looking for those big time contracts, that big time money, and again, well deserved money. And again, all these players are going to be deserving to get paid, because I think a lot of the receivers that got paid are going to be hard to replace, like Devante Adams, Tyreek Hill. They're going to be hard to replace, but then you especially have guys like AJ Brown, DK Medcap, Deebo Samuel, Terry McCoy, and those guys are going to be really, really tough to replace in the future. I mean, this draft class is loaded, but it's going to be really hard, I think, to replace those guys. I really do think that those guys are hard to replace. So before I get into the individual players, this all started because of a tweet sent out by Adam Schefter, basically saying that some of these players are going to hold out of their off-season workouts with their teams, and that's kind of what's driving this discussion because of that conversation, that tweet that was sent out by Adam Schefter. So let's look first at AJ Brown. AJ Brown, I think the main issue with him and the Tennessee Titans is the cap space with the Titans. I think that might be the most difficult thing to sign for them to sign him to a long-term extension, is their cap. However, I think he's going to stay with the Titans. I think he's too important to the Tennessee Titans, because I think it gives Ryan Tannehill a nice cushion piece to somebody who can rely on. Every time I'm watching a Tennessee Titans game, ever since AJ Brown got in the league, it just constantly feels like AJ Brown is making a ginormous play for the Tennessee Titans. You look at this 49ers game just from this past season, AJ Brown all over the field making plays. So he's a guy that you definitely want to keep. It gives a great cushion piece to Ryan Tannehill, who I think personally needs as much help as he possibly can. I think he's a good quarterback, not great. And so I think keeping AJ Brown is very important for them. But you look at some of the things that AJ Brown has done. He's had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons in 3 years. He almost had 1,000 yards last season in only 13 games. And the team was 11-2 in those games that he did play. So again, that just shows he's a very important piece to this Tennessee Titans team. He's an absolute freak of nature. He's a beast, very physical dude. and he's very fun to watch. And I think for the Tennessee Titans' sake, they've got to get an extension done for AJ Brown. And then we have Deebo Samuel, which I've already made it a video discussing Deebo Samuel and why I think the 49ers need to sign him to an extension, because I think he's kind of the heart and soul of that entire offense, and I think he showed his worth this past season, because the 49ers, while they were hindered at injuries in the running game, their running backs were hurt all the time, Deebo was a guy that they relied on late in the season, and he kind of showed that he can do every single thing on the football field. Now, for Deebo's sake, he might be the one guy that might force his issue the fastest and the hardest, just because of the workload that he did, and he knows that his time might be limited if the 49ers want to continue to use him in that expanded role of being a receiver and being a running back, just because, you know, them being injured. But he also proved that he can do everything, and he's also an important piece, I think, in Kyle Shanahan's offense, because he fits it beautifully. Like, Kyle Shanahan knows how to use Deebo, and Deebo had 1,400 receiving yards, and so he could do everything. He's very important to the 49ers. And when it comes to money and an issue, I also brought up the point that I don't know if money's going to be an issue for the 49ers and Deebo, especially if they're still committed off of moving off of Jimmy Garoppolo. So that cap space, they should get that. They're not paying their young quarterback and Trey Lance if that is the guy. And that's another important reason why the 49ers need to pay Deebo, is because, you know, with Trey Lance coming in, he's young. Deebo knows what he's doing in that offense, and I think that'll help elevate the game of Trey Lance, and I think that's just important for the 49ers to keep Deebo on that team. But again, he's a guy that's deserved it. He's just done everything for the 49ers offensively. He is the centerpiece, and it's a guy that if the 49ers lose him, that offense is going to be hurting dramatically. And then you have Terry McLaurin of the Washington football team. Sorry, the Washington Commanders. That's never going to, it's going to take forever to get used to that, because honestly, at this point, they should have just stick with Washington football team, but I digress. But Terry McLaurin, he's a very special talent. I think he's one of the most underrated guys in the entire NFL. It's a guy that nobody talks about because of the situation and where he's at in Washington, just because they've been such a bad franchise, and just it's a team that nobody really cares about. But when it comes to Washington, I think they have plenty enough cap space to probably pay him, and he's going to deserve a lot of money, and he's going to want big money. He's in the 3 years that he's been in the NFL, he's put up almost 1,000 yards in all 3 seasons. He's had 2 seasons of 1,000 yards, and his rookie year he put up 919 yards. So Terry McLaurin, he's going to want money. He's going to deserve that money, and I think it's one of those situations where Terry McLaurin actually makes the guys he plays around a little bit better, because the quarterbacks that he's played with, they haven't been particularly good. And I think if you keep Terry McLaurin, good things are going to happen with the offense, because I think Carson Wentz is better than any of the quarterbacks that they've been playing the last few years. And you have Terry McLaurin, who has elevated the game of those other wide receivers and has made, or other quarterbacks, I should say, and make them look better than what they actually are. He's a guy that you can rely on, even no matter how bad the quarterback is. It just feels like Terry McLaurin is a guy that you can rely on. He makes incredible plays. He's a very underrated player. He's very talented, and I think that for Washington's sake, if they have any intentions on being serious, this is a guy that they're going to have to extend, and they're going to have to give him a lot of money, because I think he has a valid argument in him elevating the way that offense plays, because it's already bad. And if you get rid of Terry McLaurin, the one bright piece, the one shining piece to that offense, it's really going to struggle. And then you have the final guy, DK Medcap. This guy is just kind of get thrown on there because of the fact that he was in that draft class, and the fact that, you know, he's been in the news recently. He's kind of just been in the rumor mill. People are talking about him. But DK, he might end up being traded. I don't know about a long-term extension. He's not really a guy that people are making a lot of noise about getting an extension. Do I think he's going to get paid? Yeah, he's going to get paid. It's just I don't know if he's going to get paid the big bucks like those other 3 guys are going to get. I think DK honestly kind of deserves a big contract. Now, as much as those other guys, I'm not sure, because he did play with Russell Wilson, so we don't know how much Russell Wilson did for DK, but DK was a very reliable guy. He was a playmaker all the time, so I don't think that DK is a bad wide receiver by any means. Because there's been rumors that he's going to land on the Chiefs. I mean, if he lands with the Chiefs, I'm going to throw a party, because that's just awesome. Like, I would love for DK to come to the Chiefs. He's a playmaker, and we'd love to have him. But you know, he did kind of have a down year to end last season. It wasn't, you know, the best season that he had down the stretch, but, you know, for the Seahawks' sake, it was just a bad season overall for the Seattle Seahawks. You know, Russell Wilson was injured. The Seahawks were a really bad football team. And the fact that DK is going to end up playing with Drew Lock And I don't think going from Russell Wilson to Drew Lock, that's a massive downgrade. And I don't think DK wants that. So as much as Pete Carroll's going to talk about, they're not rebuilding, that they're not going to trade away stars, I don't buy any of that. I'll believe it when the season starts and everybody's still on the team. But when it comes to DK Metcalf, at this point, he's one guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he lands somewhere else. I truly do believe by week 1 next year, he's going to be on another team. And of all these guys, I think he's the one that's likely going to be traded. I think the other 3 are just going to get, extensions by the team that they're on currently. I think all 3 of those guys beforehand are just way too important to the offenses and the teams that they're on right now. And if they lose them, I think they're going to be set back. And as loaded as this wide receiver draft is, and as talented as this draft is, I don't know how much faith I would have in a rookie to come in and have a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson like season. I wouldn't rely on a rookie to do that. I would have expectations for them, but I wouldn't have expectations for them to blow people out of the water. But those are the 3 players, and then DK, obviously, that are seeking some big money, that are looking for massive extensions, that all deserve extensions. So give me your thoughts down below of what you think of these players, what you think these teams are going to do, and if you think these players are going to be traded, where do you think they're going to end up? Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.